Welcome back everyone, Mike McConville here one more time, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. I am about to walk you through making a compound radius on this Tele fingerboard. We're doing a refret with some EVO fret wire, and while we have those frets out, we're going to true up the fingerboard and drop it down to a 12-inch radius at the top end. So I've just put fresh 80 grit on these 3 blocks. These are 3 of the 5 that I send out in the fretting kits. And we're going to start with the smallest block at the top end. So of course, the greatest amount of material is going to be taken off right around here. This top end we're dropping down to a 12-inch radius. There's my radius gauge. I already have that made up, and you can see how much that is rocking there. Right now I think we've got a 7.5-inch radius, but that's our 12-inch radius, and that's where we're going to end up. So most of the material will be taken off right here. Now, the blocks that you saw a second ago are much thinner than the width of the fingerboard, and that's exactly what I want. I don't use a radius block because I want to be able to take down the middle without touching the sides, and that's why I always use those narrower blocks. Enough talk, giddy up. This end of the fingerboard has that tighter radius for playing full bar chords. The top end has the shallower radius for doing those higher bends, super higher bends. That's why the Eric Johnson Strat, if anybody knows how to bend a string, it's Eric Johnson. Those super high bends that he does, that's why his signature Strat has that compound radius, much like we're making right now. I'm avoiding those outside edges until we get down to the final sanding. Now I've switched over to 120 grit. Check that again. Okay, now we're getting there. We're almost 6 minutes in here. Of course, I'm spending more time talking than I am sanding, just to create this tutorial for your benefit. Now I am actually concentrating on the full length of the fingerboard, being constantly aware that we're taking more material off the middle of the fingerboard to reduce that radius down to 12 inches at the top. Let's check that again. Okay, well, we're 12 inches right on the money here, and you can see as I move up, you start to get a little bit of rocking in that, and that's good. That's what we should have. So we're just about there. So I've got this block now that is 180 grit, and this is the final abrasive. We're essentially done. I'll check that one more time up at the top end. Okay, so there's our 12. At the 12th fret, yeah, slightly less than 12. And you can see the radius is rising here. Here we're definitely lower than the original radius. So I've chased right to this edge, all the way along. I've chased right to this edge. Now I have mentioned this in numerous other videos, that when you get to that outside edge, you want to be careful not to roll it over. You don't want to soften that. This should be sharp to the touch. I did have to deepen this a bit. The rest of the fingerboard will be fine because we didn't take as much off, but I'm going to bring that fret slot down just a little more. Come around this side. I'm staying out of the way of the camera here. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, looks good. Just checking that depth on which is That's the 16th of an inch, so we're good. This is, we've allowed 3/32. This is our final step. So I've got my straight edge. I'm sweeping it over the radius along the length and just checking for straightness. And yeah, I'm liking what I see here. We're good. I didn't mention that yet in this video, but I did load that truss rod. So if we loosen that truss rod off right now, without any string load at all, there'll be a little bit of relief. And what that means, I know I've said this over and over again in videos, but what that means is the customer will always be in control of the lay of the neck. So they'll be able to go to ultralight string or 13 to 56, whatever they want. They'll always be able to adjust this neck. Now we're ready for frets. For those of you who are new to my channel and just watching this type of fretwork for the first time, I'm not gluing the frets in. It is aliphatic glue, yellow carpenter's glue. I'm not gluing the steel to the wood. That's not the way it works. But what I am doing is I'm filling each slot with glue so that it absorbs the glue, because on either side of the kerf is the end grain of the maple. We've driven those frets home and wetted the kerf of the maple so that overnight it will swell and lock. So it's really a mechanical fit we're after here. It's not a matter of gluing the frets in, it's a matter of swelling the kerf to lock the fret into place. So we'll let that sit overnight, come back tomorrow. Maple is a wonderful wood, but it doesn't like grease and oil from your hands. It doesn't like water. Every little speck will show. So now with a brand new scalpel blade, I am just barely whispering over that. Resist the urge to touch it with your fingers. Okay, so we just brush that off. All these fret ends will be filled after the finish is laid on. The idea is to seal up that nice white maple before we go any further. So this first coat is just the sanding sealer, and Darcy will continue with the second coat of sanding sealer. He's leaving a good 15 minutes, let it flash off and set up before he puts a subsequent coat. And these are the polished EVO frets. And as you can see on a maple refret, it's quite a bit more work. We're not done yet. I still need to hand buff the fingerboard in between the frets. So the new frets were leveled, recrowned slightly, and then buffed out with that Maguire's polish. And that basically took care of any of the residual lacquer that was on the crowns of the frets. And now we're down to that final hand rub to get that sort of vintage patina and to clean up whatever residue is left on the frets of the nitrocellulose lacquer. So a big part of this job, as you can imagine, is just keeping that maple nice and clean. Well, it's all said and done, but before we do the proverbial tuning test, I wanted to kind of bring you in close and show you how this self-adjusting radius gauge works. Very low density foam. When I can go across like this and touch each string and actually see that foam flex, then I know we've arrived. Now when I go to the low E string, I actually leave that string a little higher than the radius, and the reason I do that is that string is first in the line of fire. You know, when you go to strum, that's the first one you hit. So I exaggerate the height on that string just that little bit. It's above the radius. The other 5 are a perfect match to the fingerboard radius. Now it's been intonated, of course, for this height and this radius. And you can see that this is a top mount bridge, so there's no holes for the body, no ferrules in the back. The whole thing loads from the top. These are the final values in the compensated nut. These are just 10 to 46 strings, concert pitch. I recently had a subscriber ask this question, so I thought I would answer it here. So the final height from the top of the crown to the underside diameter of the 6th string at the 12th fret is 5/32. And the first string height, 3/32. So the distance from the top of the crown of the 1st fret to the underside diameter of the 6th string, that's 17 thou. And this distance here that's 15 thou. So mission completed, and that's it for this telly. So let's go have a listen. Boy, I'm still a sucker for a telly after all these years. Anyway, so I've got a progression I've looped here. F major 7, sharp 11 over C, to E minor over B, E minor 7 over B, to E minor 7, A minor 9, D minor 9, F major 7, G 13, C major 9. So I'll just play through it one more time here. Let me just blow some single line stuff over this. We'll let that play. this is more of a kind of rock pop thing in A. So if you let that loop,